Continuing coverage of Microsoft Ignite live on Channel 9, and we are back at the Channel 9 live stage in the middle of a massive lunch rush.
Yeah.
And we're joined with friend of Channel 9, and, well, I call you one of my friends.
Yeah.
Mr. Jeffrey Snover.
You didn't invite me to your party. So
yeah, I
you're on
can't
the
get on your
probation
calendar.
list.
It's hard enough to get on your calendar to get you here. I call you the Godfather. We're in Chicago. We got to call you the Godfather, the PowerShell Godfather.
Okay, sounds good.
Before we get started, let's go back to last week. Let's go back to Build.
Build, yes.
And the last time you did an interview on the Channel 9 live stage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No, it's fine.
Those of you watching at home, let's give everybody watching at home, show them what happened.
What kind of things can you do with PowerShell?
Yeah, what you can't, I don't know that there's anything you can't do.
So what are the kinds of things you can do with PowerShell? Maybe a better question is, what are the things you can't do? Let's start with what you can.
Hi. I apologize for the new guy.
I
Poor
picked right up
Seth.
on that.
Yeah.
Turns out you didn't need to tell me that. I already knew.
For everybody at home, Jeffrey Silver is joining us live. You can get us your questions for Jeffrey by tweeting them to #MSIgniteCH9. Or, of course, as my earpiece pops out, if you are right on Channel 9, you can go ahead and just drop us a question there.
Yeah.
And you're going to take some questions. So,
Perfect.
an exciting last 2 weeks. You stole
crazy.
the thunder at Build, which I find fantastic as a server guy.
Yeah.
Can we say the server's back?
It's never went away. We've always been rocking. Remember that the last round, they thought, oh, clients, it's going to get rid.
Right.
And then the server had all the breakout news. Remember, Ballmer like, where'd that come from? I didn't see that happen. It's like, dude, we rock.
And the same thing happens at Build last week because
Yeah.
everybody's there and you're expecting to see, your buddy Mark something or other talk about.
Ruba.
Yes, exactly.
Ruba bitch.
Yes.
Ruba bitch.
Yes. Talk about the
Oh, there's an
Azure
S in
stuff.
there.
And then you come rocking out with this nano server
Nano
thing.
server, yeah.
Okay.
They didn't see that coming.
I was lucky enough. I had an opportunity
Yeah.
when I was walking down the hallways of the building that Jeffrey works in, and he sees me walking by. He's like, Joey, you've got to come here. You've got to see this. And I sit in your office, and you go through this presentation on a whiteboard. There weren't even slides at this point talking about this thing, and I'm just sitting there the entire time going, huh?
Really?
What is this? So for people who may have been in the server room a little too long, and it happens because we've got out, IT guys, things happen.
Yeah, the guys who aren't using PowerShell are sitting there clicking.
Yeah, so guys like Seth are actually who have not heard of Nano Server.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about
Yeah.
Nano Server.
Okay, so Nano Server is the most important, most significant, largest change we've made to the server since NT. It really is. It's a dramatic refactoring of the server. At the beginning, we were never really clear about the distinction between what a client was and what a server was. And then we started to go down that path with Server Core. Here, we take a very hard stand on this. This is what a server is. We've completely eliminated the GUI stack. We've completely eliminated 32-bit support. There's no MSI. This is a pure server stack. Now then you might say, well, what does that get you? And the answer is, it's about 20 times smaller. 20 times smaller. I've long been telling people, this local GUI, this is not a good thing. And people are like, but it feels so good. It's like, it's not helping you. And in my talk, I said, local GUIs on a server, it's like heroin. That first shit, it feels so good. And then you lead a life of despair and misery right after. You might die. And the point is that when you walk up to a one machine and that's your world, there's really no difference. A local GUI is just fine. Like small business server, small business essentials, that's fine. But that's where Windows Server started off, is all about a machine. But then it became about data centers and it became about cloud. And in that environment, a local GUI really means that you don't have a proper remote management interface, which means you can't do remote management, you can't do bulk management, and you can't do automation. And these are the things that are critical. And so the question was, well, what do I get by going down that path? And again, it's 20 times smaller. So the question is, what was it costing me to have that local GUI? Like 20 times the size.
And when you start talking about that cost, you're now talking smaller patching surface, you're talking rapid, and I mean rapid deployment, and then forget about a reboot, man.
Yeah.
I mean, these things just fire right up.
Oh yeah, if and when you have to do a reboot, they come back very, very quickly. The patching interface, we did analysis. We took a look at all the code that caused a patch in 2014. And we said, hey, does that map to anything in NanoServer? And the answer was mostly no. It had 1/10 the number of critical patches. 1/10, that's crazy.
We've got some questions coming in via Channel 9. Brian Randall is asking, what type of gigabyte boxes were you using today on stage running NanoServer? He must have some.
Yeah, so these were little gigabyte, that's correct, they were gigabyte servers. Actually, they're not really servers, they're just PCs. Servers require ECC memory, so you're not really going to run a server SKU in there. What I did was I had a little, like 4 inches of servers, and I had 3 or 4 servers in that. I had a Hyper-V cluster running on that using NanoServer with NanoServer running. We had a Hyper-V manager failover cluster showing remote GUI management of it. Remote GUI management of it.
Well, key, because if you don't have a UI,
yeah,
how do you manage? I mean, I know how you manage it. PowerShell.
Yes.
Right?
But we also do support the GUI. That was what we were showing. Yes, GUIs are great, but they run on the client. Okay, so that's what we were showing, and we were doing live migrations. So the specific gigabyte boxes were, I think we had an i7, 16 gigabytes of RAM, we had 256 megabyte SSD, so they were quite nice machines. But again, you're not really going to use that for a server because it doesn't have EEC.
Right. As we continue down the path, and we started it in the question, which is this, the management capabilities inside of NanoServer. Now, we've talked before, just kind of in the hallways, and talking. Okay, this is going to be this is going to be a major change.
Yes,
it's a major change not just for the IT technology professionals who may not have started to use the remote management features, maybe using some PowerShell.
Yep.
It's also a change to our software vendors and the ISVs that are out there producing that software.
Correct.
Because a lot of them really rely on that UI.
Yep.
And now you go to this next just step, I guess, and in the future, it's this big change.
It's time to pull that needle out, get control over your life, clean up your act, and become a proper server software supplier. That is correct. So in fact, a lot of people, my customers tell me that they can run fine with server core, that they have no problem with that, but with third-party software, often they have to put the GUI on to get it installed. And then once it's installed, then they can take the GUI off and run it properly. So those guys really do need to clean up their act. It's a call to action, because there is no choice. It's not going to happen. There is no GUI stack, so they need to be able to do installation. Now here, let me be clear. Part of the problem was that they were often combining installation and configuration. And now we want to say, no, those are 2 separate acts. You want to install things using things like Xcopy deployment, right? So that you can do offline deployments, offline servicing, etc. And then a separate step is configuration. And there we're telling people to use PowerShell desired state configuration to configure it. This enables a DevOps tool chain so that you can manage it with PowerShell if you want to do your own scripting, or enable configuration management vendors like Chef, Guardrail, Aditi. They all layer on top of the desired state configuration, and these are DevOps tools, so they can go and manage things in a DevOps mindset.
It's super important. One of the key takeaways, and I was sitting at the back and watching your session live. I was sitting in the back, and one thing that strikes me, there is a very distinct terminology that is now being used that you're trying to clarify around the definition of server. So I believe your slide starts with NanoServer at the bottom, then you talk about the server, and then the client. And I think this is super important for folks at home to understand, because we're going to start using this nomenclature moving forward.
Great, yes. Okay, so Confucius once said, the first step to enlightenment was by calling things by their true names. We've been having lots of confused conversations because we haven't been calling things by their true names. So let's talk about true names. In the past, we called things server core and full server. Okay, that was horrible on both accounts. Server core was really where we wanted people to be, and we were qualifying it, core, right? And then full server, that sounded like a good thing, like, oh, my product's so good,
Yes,
I require
I have a
a
full
full
server.
server. And it's like, no, 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 no. And so in this release, we got it a little clearer. We now call it server core, again, bad name, but it's the recommended option. And then we call that other component server with a GUI. Going forward, we're not going to call it server core anymore. It's called server. That is our server. What the art is formerly known as server core. It's server, because I want to be clear. That is our server. That thing above it, we used to call full server, the thing we now call server with a GUI. We're going to give it a new name. We haven't settled on it, but it'll probably be called the client stack. Literally the client stack or the client experience. Because what is it? It's the client stack. It's the shell, it's IE, it's Explorer. Now, why would you ever want to put a client stack on a server? And the answer is there are very good reasons, and there are two of them. RDS, Remote Desktop Services.
Yes.
That's the point of it.
Yep.
And the second is Small Business Server, right, or Small Business Essentials, where they are still in a world where they buy a server, they give it a big hug, and they walk up to it and they manage it.
Yeah.
Right? That is their server. So those are the two scenarios. But other than that, server applications, server products, NIC vendors, all these guys that produce diagnostics, drivers, and applications, they need to target server or nano server. Nano server is the cloud optimized version. And if you again, if you have somebody come into you saying, I've got a great server application, please just install the client to run it, you should say, hey, McFly, welcome. This is 2015, not 1915. That's not the way we do things. And sort of like my joke was earlier, I was talking about this DevOps mindset that you want to manage your servers like cattle, not pets.
Yes.
And I mentioned, if you're naming your servers something like Fluffy, chances are that's an indication that you're not approaching it with a cloud mindset.
Yes.
Well, so too, if you're buying a server software that requires a client stack, it's an indication that maybe they don't have their head in the future, that maybe they're not really understand what it means to run a data center, to give you the operational requirements that you need to run a high-quality IT operation. So, you probably, again, they ask you for, just install the client stack. You might want to have a conversation with them.
We've got a couple other questions. Warren S. Jr. says, does/will nano server support NLB teaming of NICs?
Yeah, so here's the way to think about it. Let me draw a distinction here. The way to think about it is we're focused in on two scenarios. Cloud OS infrastructure. Now, Cloud OS infrastructure in version 1 concretely means what we would run CPS on, their cloud platform solution.
Yes.
So cloud platform solution, 1 to 4 racks, all the physical servers run one of two things: clustered hypervisor, cluster storage. So there. Now, in that environment, teaming of NICs, absolutely critical. The other scenario, by the way, is born in the cloud applications.
Yeah.
Okay. So, now that will determine what things we find in scope and the things we'll program manage to make sure are nailed in version 1. For any particular release, we may have it or may not. In fact, I don't know whether we have NIC teaming in the bits we just gave you. I do know that we had some issues getting them up and running, and I don't know whether we got them resolved in time to give them to you or whether they'll be there. But the answer is, hey, would we use that for CPS? The answer is yes. Therefore, you can be assured we're going to make that work.
Graham asks, will the Windows/Azure stack run on nano server? And I think the more important server is how does, and we talked about in the keynote, it came very late in the keynote, Azure Stack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Essential. I mean, you've been a busy boy over there in server land, right?
Well, yes.
Let's talk about how Nano Server and Azure Stack kind of relate.
Yeah. So Azure Stack is the Azure APIs and services made available on premises. So indeed, what we want to do is we want to be able to take all the applications and the operations and that whole mindset and bring it to the people in their data centers. So yes, it's very much in focus to get that running on Nano Server.
Brilliant. And again, to clarify, this is the one thing I just got. Jeffrey just nailed it. You can run Azure in your data center.
Yeah, is that crazy?
Shows the UI. It's Azure.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Well,
I've got
that's
a
the thing. I don't know. We talked about it, but I'm just so optimistic about the company because of the mindset that Satya has of this. Do whatever it takes to meet the customer where they are. Now, other companies, they have a vested. You know what? All they got is a public cloud, so they spend their time kind of bad mouthing the private cloud. Other vendors, you know what I'm talking about, all they have is a private cloud, so they spend their time, creating FUD about the public cloud. We have both, right? And we enable third-party cloud providers. So we have no vested interest in you going one way or the other. We have a vested interest in making sure that you are successful. And so we are going to make them successful whether they want to stay where they are, move to the public cloud, or use a third-party provider, or do a little bit of each. So it's just such a nice position to say, I'm not trying to sell you anything.
Yeah.
Whatever you decide, it's
Yep.
fine by me. How can I help you succeed? And that's just a cool place to be as an engineer.
And at the end of the day, it's Windows Server.
There you go.
It's the stuff they're running today.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
The future of Windows Server, I mean, it's fantastic. And
It's
I'm going to
never
get to
looked
a
brighter.
question that Lars has,
Yeah.
which is about this. So Lars on Twitter is asking how Microsoft will ensure that there is a Nano server going forward.
Yeah, how will we ensure there's a nano server? I'm not entirely sure what he's referring to, but I will tell you this. I once had a one-on-one with my boss, and or no, it was a big meeting, and he says like, and he had asked a very similar question, like, hey, what about this, what about this, what about this? And I said, Bill, all you need to do is to make sure that my badge still works, and you can be guaranteed somebody is dedicating their life to making sure this is going to happen. So this is something I've been working on. Well, look, the teams have been working on this for many, many, many years. I'm absolutely dedicated to this. It's what I came to Microsoft to do, right? To produce an environment where my people, my tribe, my IT pros can succeed. And I just know that environment that they had caused too many reboots. It consumed too many resources. It didn't allow them to provide automated operations. Let me be clear about this. So one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about PowerShell is not just that you can do command line. Who cares? If you replace one click, click, click with a click, 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 click with the keyboard, that's not really changing things. But by being able to script things, you're able to automate operations. And being able to automate operations, you can look and you say, I don't like that result. Oh, well, change what you did. Try it again. Do you like that result? No. Try it again. Do you like that result? Yeah. Okay, great. Now you have an asset that you can apply over and over and over again and get exactly the same result. In other words, scripting allows better IT operations.
Yeah.
And when you can provide better, more scalable operations, it means you can deliver more business value. And I cannot tell you the number of people out here who've been coming up to me and thanking me for PowerShell, and they tell me about the raises that they've gotten, how they've been a hero to their company, the massive bonuses that they've been getting. People tell me they've tripled their salary. One guy told me his company didn't appreciate him, so he put got his resume out there, featured PowerShell. He got a $57,000 a year raise. I got to tell you, there are many examples like that. The real point is that now all of a sudden you have got a framework where you can deliver business value and be seen to be delivering business value and be rewarded. And I got to tell you, nothing makes me happier than to talk to somebody who we've been able to help with their career. I mean,
Isn't that I mean, that's
the best.
that's an awesome story. It's as if you knew my questions that are written here, and I know you didn't. There's a lot of us in the IT industry, and I'll even say it, that are very inspired by the work that you've done with PowerShell, your passion for the server, your passion for exactly being able to deliver. You call it your tribe. I call them my people, right, the IT pros. I want to ask you, I'm at this event, and I love the fact, in fact, when I saw your name come up on the schedule, I wasn't originally supposed to do the interview. I'm like, can I get an interview, Jeffrey, please? I love talking with Jeffrey. Who inspires you? We come here and we're inspired by all these people that we get to talk to because we get to talk to these fantastic engineers. Who inspires you?
Everybody. I mean, there's amazing stuff. The Azure guys, Rusinovich, Rusinovich, I've got a thing going on.
Yeah.
The reality is, Guy's a rock star.
Yeah.
He really is. He's just doing some fantastic work. The individual engineers, I got to say that, one of the things that I find difficult is that people like Mark and I are out there and we're great spokespeople, and we it kind of masks the great work that our individual engineers do.
Absolutely.
That's why I was so pleased that one of the, two of the key contributors to NanoServer, the engineers who've been in the code for years and years and years, who really are my inspiration, they are here this week, and I was able to stop, have them stand up and let the audience see the people who it's really responsible for. Yes, I provided some executive sponsorship. Yes, I provided some guidance and such. But these are the guys who just work their butt off, and we just got a whole company of them. Microsoft goes out of its way. If you see so go take a look on Channel 9, the wonderful Channel 9, and search for NanoServer team. Okay, and you'll see this long list of great videos, and then listen to them. And what you're going to hear is all these different accents. And the answer is, we go wherever the greatest people in the world are, we're looking for those people to try and hire them so that they can do their best work at Microsoft and you can get it. So sometimes, honestly, you're going to find some of the accents, and sometimes you can say, what did they say? That's a good thing. Because what that really means is, we were able to find a super smart person, bring them to Microsoft, have them do their best work for them. So those people really inspire me.
aka.ms/nanoserver team. Prior to today, there were 9 previous videos on NanoServer. Today, we released 6 new videos, including remote management tools for NanoServer, including some partner stuff with Five9, remote server manager, a NanoServer reboot video. Jeffrey, how exciting can that's got to be a long video.
No, it's a short video. That's the whole point.
I wonder if you click it, you wonder if it actually played.
Yeah,
right?
no, it takes a little bit long. I think it's 27 seconds.
Yeah.
By the way, that's on a physical server. On VMs, it's crazy fast. And guess what? It's important for people to know when we talk about these numbers, these are all preliminary numbers. We actually haven't done a performance pass. So these numbers are, we continue to do refactoring. So if you come to me and say, to get Erlang running, you need these additional APIs. Well, okay, we'll get those additional APIs on there. The size might grow a bit, but it's not going to grow terribly large. But we have not done the performance work, so we expect a number of these things, reboot time, memory consumption, a number of the things we're tracking, we expect to get much better. So that's pretty cool.
Closing moments. We've obviously the call to action. Yeah, we've got to go live to a room. I think that Mark guy's going to speak.
Who?
Yeah. Call to action, obviously PowerShell.
Yep.
No UI, no management.
Yeah.
How do you log on to that server?
Oh, yeah. So how do you log? You don't. You do remote PowerShell. You do remote PowerShell. Now, people say, but what happens if the NIC is bad? There's 3 answers. First is, if you want to, there's still a serial connection. You can hook an emergency management port console to that.
Okay.
The second is, don't do that. Just that's not the DevOps mindset. The DevOps mindset is, throw that away, go recreate it, etc. And the third answer is that we worked with the Hyper-V team. So now there's a host guest channel. And the Hyper-V guys on the floor are showing a demonstration where they use PowerShell remoting over the host guest channel. So they got a VM, no NICs. No NICs. You're in the hypervisor, you say, I'd like to connect to that VM over the host guest channel. You're there, they're transferring files, they're performing operations, and at some point they say, now add a NIC. It's beautiful.
Awesome. It's not Mark. We're going to talk to Taylor. Taylor's got his session upstairs.
Oh,
containers.
Taylor. Containers.
Even better stuff.
No, I don't know about even better, but combined, they're great.
Yeah, I wish we had more time. I could talk to you for hours,
okay.
And usually do. Those of you at home, please stay tuned right here at ignite.microsoft.com, where we've got more live coverage from Chicago. We'll see you back after the session.